stream got intercepted by federal agents? Yeah, no joke, which is germane to the fucking article I'm about to read, because your Discord DMs are being read by the feds. Anyways, now that the fucking insane plot device of this game and the writers have decided that, like, yeah, every Pokemon just automatically trust Gengar, who has been shown to have, like, every reason to be distrusted, and have decided unilaterally over the course of, like, 5 minutes to kill you and your partner, despite you literally never having done anything negative. I'm gonna start running through the list of things that I have. Number one being stuff related to the Charlie Kirk assassination. Again, the discourse is still running hot with that. Not necessarily, well, in some respects, with still tied to the act itself, because, well, we're still technically unsure of the ideological leanings of the shooter. News outlets are eating themselves alive trying to associate him with the left in some way. But to the extent that there exists evidence of him being part of an ideological contingent or cohort, he seems to be either a, like, terminally online shit poster who's not necessarily coherently aligned with, like, the left or the right, or alternatively a groyper. The more likely probability in my mind is that he is a groyper, but I don't think anything is super confirmed yet, right? So the right-wing rumor mills are hard at work, basically just asserting that, like, he's part of the left despite no evidence to that. And they have actually cranked up the cancel culture machine to 11. That's the first thing I want to talk about. There's actually another relevant thing to mention, but I'll get to that later. It's a little bit more substantive. People have been losing their jobs and shit. People have been experiencing real socioeconomic consequences for criticizing Charlie Kirk, of all fucking people, after his death. Guy who was, mind you, a Zionist, a white nationalist, white supremacist, a fascist, said that, like, black people are low IQ, or I think particularly black women can't earn the spot that they get, and so they have to steal it from white people or something like that. Like, legitimately, he just, it's surprising how open he was with extremely racist talking points on his podcast, right? And so people have been quoting him and losing their jobs because of it, because this country is fake and it's entirely consumed by far-right propaganda and the interests of capital, who had their hand deep up the ass of Charlie Kirk at the time he was doing his podcast, because he is boring as fuck and nobody would want to listen to him if he didn't have an artificially generated reach with millions upon millions of dollars supporting him. He has also literally said that abortion is worse than the Holocaust. So, to give you an idea of the ideology of the person here. Unfortunately, there's been some success in laundering his reputation by virtue of the mainstream news eulogizing him to an audience that is not familiar with online politics. So with a lack of other context, they simply take the word of news outlets that he was this good faith conservative interlocutor when he's actually, like, Goebbels. And so now there's a growing contingent of I guess not particularly online normies who are like, well, Charlie Kirk just loved this country or something like that, which is unfortunate to see. But nonetheless, the far right controls all the media, so they're gonna more or less get their way with that. Also, he was one of the early adopters on the right of the, like, we need to revisit the 19th Amendment type shit. The 19th Amendment, for those unfamiliar, being the amendment of the U.S. Constitution that says that women have the right to vote as well. So then we get to, as I'm beginning Lapis Cave here, then we get to the next relevant portion of this, right? You know, every accusation is a confession. Conservatives now doing cancel culture of everybody who says, like, wow, Charlie Kirk is a fascist, and I'm glad that he's dead. The fact that it's an assassination is still bad, but, like, fuck that guy. But it doesn't stop there. Shout outs to my goat, Ken Klippenstein. Apparently, there is a much more institutional social media crackdown outside of just the cancel culture, people getting fired from their jobs, having their social media posts scrutinized publicly by, you know, random accounts. The subheader reads, how buying a t-shirt led to government monitoring. 5 hours after Charlie Kirk was shot this week, let me pull the article over here so I don't have to, like, edit this in after the fact. Yeah, that type of shit. That's the kind of eulogy that mainstream press has been giving Kirk. What the fuck? What is happening? My computer just shit itself. What is my disk doing? This has been an issue that's persisted for several months. I've checked the health of my disk 2 or 3 times. There's no discernible reason it should be doing this. Stream got intercepted by federal agents? Yeah, no joke, which is germane to the fucking article I'm about to read, because your Discord DMs are being read by the feds. I already subscribed to Ken Klippenstein, and you should too. He does good journalism. He's one of the only fucking real journalists left. What's up, 1v3? I'm going over this Ken Klippenstein article that goes over how the assassination of Charlie Kirk provided an excuse for the FBI to do such a broad investigation that they're now doing a broad-based crackdown on social media posts. In particular, they're reading your Discord DMs. You might not need to worry right now because you're not American, but I sure as shit do because I'm American, I'm on the left, and I am edgy as fuck. So the feds fucking hate people like me. 5 hours after Charlie Kirk was shot this week, an Atlanta man, mind you, Charlie Kirk was shot in Utah, an Atlanta man, Atlanta, Georgia, other side of the country, got a phone call from an Illinois police officer, also a different state, about halfway between Utah and Atlanta. You know? Like, middle of the country, near the west of the country, all the way on the East Coast. Illinois police officer asking about a photo he shared with a couple of close friends on a private Discord chat. The Atlanta man, who asked not to be identified, says the post was merely a confirmation that he had purchased the same t-shirt that the accused killer wore from an Illinois-based online shop. The police officer told him he was following up on an active FBI investigation of Kirk's assassination, and warned that due to the political climate, posting such a photo was ill-advised. They literally investigated him for politically disfavored speech. That is the text. That is not the subtext. That is the text. You know, given the circumstances, we're investigating you for your political speech. The Atlanta man was confused and disturbed, he told me, that police learned so quickly of his purchase and also knew of his private Discord post. Yeah, mind you, police aren't supposed to have access to any of this. The law in the United States it is such that private communications between you and another person are supposed to be private, barring a legal process where police can obtain a search warrant. There is a process by which your communications, even private communications, can be seized, but they have to go to a judge. You know, at least before the Patriot Act, this was the case. They had to get a warrant from a judge. They have to have some really, really fucking good reason, good enough to convince like a legal scholar that they should have access to somebody's private communications. Europe, maybe for now. I don't know how much better things are there. I think this, you know, I mean, the surveillance in Europe is kind of ramping up a little bit as well. Certainly in the UK, you know, if you see all the fucking cameras everywhere. But for now, yes, Europe. Discord has made clear that there's no evidence that the alleged shooter used its platform to plan or communicate anything about the attack. Despite this, pundits and politicians across the political spectrum this weekend created an orgy of fear-mongering about Discord and other social media platforms, as well as the internet in general. This is the part of the manufacturing of consent. They're trying to generate a lot of like political permission to crack down on Discord and other social media that young and politically active people use. Being Nepalese would also be quite awesome to be. That's true. Given that Nepal recently had massive protests and people actually like fucking cared enough to overthrow the government, I at least I think that's what happened. I think that like the prime minister is actually gone now, like they stepped down or something like that. Could it get any worse for you at this point? It could get worse. It could always get worse. Yesterday, Utah Governor Spencer Cox called the internet a cancer. Today, he added that cancer probably isn't strong enough of a word. And get this, likening social media to the equivalent of fentanyl and destroying young minds and taking lives. What's worse than cancer? Fent. The most American racist thing, like, American racism is way the fuck funnier than European racism in some ways, because Americans are on some, like, you gotta be on some different shit. Spencer Cucks? True, in many such cases. Cancer isn't strong enough. What's worse than cancer? I know, fentanyl. That's crazy. By the way, for people who aren't cued in, the only reason that you would describe the reason that like fentanyl here is being described as like worse than cancer, the reason that he chose this fucking word is because fentanyl is associated with the black community. The war on drugs kind of rhetoric sort of persists to today. But over time it's been different drugs, and right now it's fentanyl, and part of the war on drugs was that it disproportionately affected black communities. Yeah, there you go. Fent is code for the drugs that those pesky blacks use, right? So in his mind, that's worse than cancer because it brings to mind black people for him. Fent is really funny though. The fucking shortening fentanyl to just Fent. Anyways, the quote here. We've seen an escalation in violence that has been happening across the country. I don't think a governor, I don't think a president, and I don't think anyone can change the trajectory of this. It truly is about every single one of us. No, you can change the trajectory of this. There's something that you can do. Maybe any one person can't, but like, nah, this is complete cap. European racism is like billions must die, and American racism is like they put Fent in the Halloween candy. And I can't emphasize enough the damage that social media and the internet is doing to all of us. Those dopamine hits, those companies, trillion-dollar market caps, and the most powerful companies in the history of the world have figured out how to hack our brains, get us addicted to the outrage, which is the same type of dopamine, the same chemical that you get from taking fentanyl and get us addicted to outrage and getting us to hate each other. Extremely funny paragraph. Lest you believe that there's a kernel of truth to this because of like the dopamine hits and the trillion-dollar market cap companies, you know, fucking over the internet. Just wait, because you will find out he is not cooking here, like, even remotely. This guy's talking a suspicious amount about dopamine and drugs. Well, yeah, he's a politician, so he's probably doing a whole lot of drugs and shit behind the scenes. But he has to virtue signal about like how bad drugs are or some shit. I've seen it in real time since the death of Charlie Kirk. I've seen it every corner of our society. Ah, yes, only since the death of Charlie Kirk. The conflict entrepreneurs are taking advantage of us, and we're losing our agency. We have to take that back. We have to turn it off. And do you have to give it? And do you have to give it back to the community and caring about our neighbors and bettering ourselves, exercising, sleeping, and all those things that this thing takes away from us? I almost had a stroke reading that. Social media has become a punching bag in the wake of violent incidents like these, but Governor Cox's condemnation of social media does not somehow apply to his ongoing use of accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and X/Twitter. He means bad social media like Discord. There you have it. Remember how I was saying earlier that this is to generate the sort of political consent necessary to crack down on media that primarily young and politically active and primarily left-leaning people would be predisposed to using? The proof is in the pudding, right? Oh, we hate social media, but not the social media that we can use to propagandize about how, like, it's the left's fault and also it's Fent or something. We mean the social media that we, like, don't understand and don't know how to use, right? In other words, he wants people to see social media in national security terms. Okay, well, yeah, there you go. I should let Ken Klippenstein cook. I shouldn't interrupt. A battle between that which is innocent, that which is dangerous, plainly between sanctioned and unsanctioned speech. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna just let Ken Klippenstein cook. On Friday, FBI Director Kash Patel gave a sense of the massive scale of the national security machine's response. Last night, we had a total of approximately 7,000 leads, Patel said. As of this morning, thanks to your great work, we have over 11,000 leads that were called into the FBI, and we're running out every single lead that we can. This represents the most tips received by the FBI since the Boston Marathon bombing, as Governor Cox has pointed out. So much for free speech? It sure seems like it. Patel is in effect saying that anything, even just the purchase of a t-shirt, remember before, is a lead. So here we have the process. You take advantage of a tragic event. Debatable how tragic the death of Charlie Kirk would be, of course, but you take advantage of an event such as that to manufacture the political consent for the thing that you were already doing and already planning to do, which is start investigating any and everybody for something that could potentially offend the sensibilities and objectives of the state, right? And it helps, too, that Charlie Kirk had connections in the government. Like, for shit's sake, J.D. Vance is hosting his podcast now. The fucking vice president of the United States is now hosting the fucking Charlie Kirk podcast now that he's gone, right? Like, it's sort of it's almost a textbook example of how a fascist state advances its authoritarianism, reaching to almost totalitarian lengths to surveil its own population and investigate people for disfavored political speech. Kirk was friends with Trump. Oh yeah, the two of them have met, and they knew each other. Of course, Trump didn't give a single fuck when they interviewed him afterwards, but yeah, I'm gonna read this again to reemphasize it, that the FBI now, it is the official position of the FBI that anything, even just the purchase of a t-shirt, is a lead in this investigation that is so broad that it is ranging with an assassination committed in Utah. They are investigating people on the other side of the country in Atlanta using police resources in Illinois. This ranges across the whole country. They are now willing and able to sort of start pulling levers to say, okay, monitor political speech on these social media apps. Which is data they've had access to for some time, but they're becoming a lot more concerningly active about monitoring it and about, like, almost intimidating people who, do the whole wrong think bit. Makes sense that investigators might be interested in discovering an accomplice or a conspiracy. But when an okay, yeah, again, I need to let Ken Klippenstein cook. But when an investigation jumps from Utah to Illinois to Atlanta, it also makes sense to ask the authorities what exactly they're investigating. Social media companies are generally forbidden by law from divulging users' private communications to the government without traditional legal processes, e.g., court order. This is what I outlined earlier. Again, I need to let Ken cook. But there's an exception. In perceived emergencies, social media platforms can proactively and voluntarily hand over private messages in response to what's called an emergency disclosure request, an EDR. Discord, I'm told, did not respond to any EDR here, but when I asked them directly if they'd provided law enforcement with information to traditional legal process, they declined to respond on record. So we don't know whether they've gone through the real legal process, but they sure as shit didn't go through the expedited process. As the Atlanta man recounted to me, which, by the way, most likely means that the cops are tapping people's communications illegally, right? Because, like I said, getting a court order takes time. This happened 5 hours after the shooting. 5 hours. Their ass did not go through any of the appropriate channels to do that. They were waiting for this. As the Atlanta man recounted to me and corroborated with screenshots, on the afternoon of September 11th, he purchased the shirt off of eBay from a seller based in Naperville, Illinois, before posting his ironic find in a private Discord chat with several close friends of his. The next day, he received 3 calls from the police. He explains he's with the Naperville Police Department on behalf of an ongoing FBI investigation, the Atlanta man told me. That I committed no crimes and am in no trouble, then why the fuck are the cops calling you? But he needs to know why I sent a picture of the, quote, terrorist, which I had to correct him on. The police officer did not seem to realize that the Atlanta man hadn't posted a photo of the shooter, just another t-shirt with the same design. But the cop did know he'd sent the image to the private chat. Given that the call came from the same city as the eBay seller, it wasn't clear how the police had access to his private Discord chat. Just to let people at home know, in moments like this, you should know your rights. If somebody calls you and it's a phone number you don't recognize, you don't have to pick it up. If it's the cops, you do not have to talk to them. You are not legally obligated in any way to talk to the police over the phone. You don't have to pick it up. You can hang up. If they come to your house, you do not have to let them in. Do not open the door. Do not talk to them. All right? You do not have to talk to the cops. You do not have to speak to them over the phone. You do not have to interact with them if they come to your house. Do not let them in. You do not have to let them in. The only circumstance under which you could talk to the cops or let them in is if they demonstrate to you that they have a judicial search or arrest warrant. None of that administrative warrant bullshit. If they don't have a judicial warrant, you are legally within your rights to tell them to go fuck themselves. Not in those exact words, because I think there are actual laws in the United States that allow them to potentially arrest you for saying profanity, but you can tell them to get lost and that you don't want to talk to them. That you are within your rights to do that. Until the point where they show you the warrant, you do not have to talk to them or let them in or do anything for them. Remember that. Know your rights, because we might not have them for very long. The FBI, or the intelligence community, evidently is monitoring Discord private messaging, even from people who have broken no law. Yeah, by the cops' own admissions. By the cops' own admission here, 5 hours after the shooting took place, he is illegally tapping somebody's private Discord communications with personal friends over politically disfavored speech, and they have not committed any crime. And the cops are still investigating and questioning this person. No crime committed. This is purely about the expression of something on a t-shirt several states away. Though unfamiliar and thus scary to types like Governor Cox, Discord is an extremely popular American chat app with over 200 million users. Far from the niche cesspool of radicalism it's been portrayed as, the app is basically just WhatsApp for gamers, a group that may once have been a subculture but is completely mainstream today. What its users may not know is that Discord responds to about 2 emergency disclosure requests daily from law enforcement, quote, when it has a good faith belief that an emergency involving imminent risk of death or serious bodily injury requires disclosure of information without delay. As Discord told Congress, it responds to emergency requests in under an hour on average. One Discord employee says the process is getting even faster. In such cases, Discord does not notify users that its communications have been handed over. The man in Atlanta only knew about the authorities having access to his Discord communications because the cop who called him let it slip. In the days and weeks ahead, we will see plenty of statements like Cox's, and we will see plenty of pundits and politicians demanding that something be done about social media, that we need to watch it more closely, that we need to collect more, and that we need to pressure bad companies and users. But it appears that more is already being done behind the veil of secrecy. Yeah, the public announcement of these like new surveillance initiatives, crackdowns on social media, these will be nothing more than confirmations of something that has already been happening. That was never like, that they never intended to allow any sort of public debate on, that they never intended to like let go. This was just the excuse. Does that make sense? Yeah, we like genuinely we're running pretty close to thought crime here. You know, the Democrats will more or less go along with this because they're a bunch of old retard technophobes too. Yeah, they will. And because Democrats are also like completely bought into the new generations of the military industrial complex and the fucking national security surveillance state, right? Like they are just as much participants in this as the Republicans are. You know, the Democrats simply favor doing this more civilly and quietly. The only difference between Democrats and Republicans on this front is that Republicans will be loud and zealous about it. Democrats simply want to do it with the veil of like bureaucratic and administrative quiet, basically. Money. Again, it's one of those things where it's like, there's not much we can do about it now except for be loud and annoying about it, but that might earn you the ire of the cops these days. I mean, shit, Ken Klippenstein has been visited by the FBI several times, and because he's smart and he knows his rights, he knows how to tell them to go fuck themselves. Again, not in those exact words. But if, you know, if in the unlikely event the cops show up at your door, the cops give you a phone call, you can just hang up. You don't have to talk to them. You don't have to let them in. Like, shit, these people operate on vampire rules. Do not talk to them. They want nothing more than to arrest you and throw your ass in jail and ruin your life for the sake of a quota that they check off on a checklist at the end of the month, and they get a pay bonus. Leave here and fornicate at once. Yeah, maybe say that. That shit is funny. Does not involve any profanities. If this becomes a YouTube segment, folks in the comments, comment, leave here and fornicate at once, to let me know that you've watched the video up to this point. And remember that this is another critical moment where we have to all understand the cops and the state, they hate you. They hate us. The state pursues self-preservation by means of control, by means of suppression of you know, people's like political expression, their psychosexual expression, etc., etc. This is one element of that. You know, an assassination happened of a politically connected right-wing pundit who was very, very prolific in spreading white supremacy and escalatory fascist rhetoric online. And now the state has leapt into action, not even necessarily to, like, I don't know, preserve his good name. The administration has been surprisingly bad taste about, like, everything they've done to, like, commemorate Charlie Kirk or some shit like that. But rather they've leapt into action to take even more of your rights away, particularly rights to privacy and not having your political speech scrutinized and held against you when you've even committed no crime. Cut the segment there. Thanks for watching, and support the channel if you would be so kind.